All right, everybody. I like to try to start on time so you guys can get out of here because I don't want to spend a lot of your time. And thanks for everybody that's showing up. A much better showing than the last, as Jacob will know, and a few others here know of about 5 or 6 people. So, and again, I wasn't expecting like I can understand kind of down to the numbers, but 5 or 6, I was like, what? You know, saying we're having a, again, Empire of Wealth was happening like that day. But anyway, all right. The main thing is tomorrow format of the quiz. First thing I want to tell you, the first question that you will have up there. By the way, this isn't even though this is partly filled out. It's not. It's going to be different. Okay, like that and everything tomorrow. So you can zoom in on you want like that. So you'll have the headings up here, the Gilded Age, Victorian Age, all right, like that, And I will put 2 to 3 of them in here, and you have to fill in the missing one. And I think there is about 4 or 5. I think that's about it. Yeah, I think there's just 4. And imagine which ones I'm going to put in which one. And you have to fill it out and say, given the reasons why this time period that civil rights would be up or something like civil rights would be down or why like again this time that divorce is still bad and you would justify that in one of those things. So that will be the first question on the quiz tomorrow. And we're actually going to have to get started probably a little bit early. Probably have to give you about 20 or 25 minutes. Lily probably more time like that. So to finish this quiz tomorrow. It'll be the last quiz and probably I guess the last significant grade. Besides, I still got to get your Empire Wealth back to you and your project grade. Go ahead. Okay, go ahead. Let's just say right here I got consumerism. I left these last 2 blank, the 1920s, and all you would put is consumerism is up in the 1920s, maybe even more because of because of consumer credit, because of like the catalog order and installment buying. All right, and then for the 1950s, you say, hey, if I left that blank, consumerism expands even more, like because this is a post World War II boom is beginning to take place and more availability of goods. That's it. And actually, you don't have to write in a sentence because I don't give you that much space. You can almost like jot down a few things here to justify the reason why you're putting this in there. Yes, just like what we did on the board. Again, on that's on there like that. So, and you should be kind of familiar. It's what you took a picture of. All right. So, all right. And the next 4 questions on the bottom on here will be on that Spencer's favorite video, the disturbing video, the kind of like Levittown. Again, people welcoming all kinds of people to their neighborhood. So you need to take a look at that for sure. Yes, there definitely will be questions with everybody's favorite show and series, Doctor Who, on there like that. So, and more of those questions, you might be surprised. I mean, you have to watch them, but I mean, it's going to be pretty reflective upon that. Okay, so like on those 2 episodes, and I have to say, there was a reason for. I think people have already saw the Doctor Who episode, saw that like it wasn't a waste of time, and they were like, what was the point in there for that? All right, good enough. And what we need to do today, and then you see on the video, because we're 1950s is dense. We're actually, if some of you guys had this, we're going to go through this today, right now, at this time, and I'll probably do on the video, okay? If you had it. Maybe if you don't have it, I don't have enough copies, just share or look around and everything, because we need to go through this. And then this way I can get to Elvis, the pelvis, and, Chuck Berry, interstate highway system, teenagers, organization, man, things more going on domestically here in the 1950s and civil rights as well. And don't worry, tomorrow, I'm telling you the truth, in class, civil rights, I will not go as, densely into it. You guys probably since first grade has been seeing the videos of this march, that place. That's why I did the Doctor Who thing, or like people being escorted in there. So it's not going to be too much detail uh, as far as like class time and more domestic and social stuff, political stuff. Like that's right. You get the frisbee. It's again, you get Barbie, you get transistor radio, things of that nature. All the consumer like kind of like you know products here that just kind of made America. All right, first thing to think about right here. I know I taught this in class. I'll get to the election maybe like uh, again tomorrow. Once again, everything like why is he elected? I think I answered only in third period. Main thing here that you see in there, the Eisenhower doctrine. Now this is really that's not the true doctrine yet. The true doctrine comes down later when you get the Suez crisis. But what you have here and what you should see in here, you have his Secretary of State John Foster Dulles talking about, look, what we should do, we should threaten massive retaliation. That means wipe them out, this kind of like, mutually assured destruction. Go to the brink. All right, so I'm kind of explaining both of them here. Go to the brink of war, like in the straits of like Taiwan and China, before you actually really, really come to conflict, but just, dare and double dare. Like Mr. Price when he used to like, in high school, like, what you gonna do? What you gonna do? I wish you come over here. I'm like, oh, like shaking and stuff like that. Cause I don't really want to fight, but I'm definitely bluffing, coming to the brink, and I might come to the fight. So let me just take off my coat. Let me just take off my coat. I'm delaying. So, but coming to the brink, yes, massive retaliation. The main idea, let me just sum this up, is that you're going to see in the Eisenhower presidency, and he's not really saying this too publicly, okay, that he's going to concentrate on using nuclear weapons instead of conventional weapons. It's what we call more bang for your buck. Eisenhower, we're on Eisenhower from like 53 to 61, that you're going to be, that's going to cut down the cost of of the defense spending by concentrating on the nuclear weapons. And plus, maybe you won't have to build, instead of building like, 1,000 tanks, one hydrogen bomb now can take care of what, how the effectiveness of the conventional weapons. But as you know, that's not going to be realistic as far as cost wise, because the delivery systems on these weapons will cost a lot of money, from the B-52s to the newly created rockets that will have to deliver these kind of like defense systems on there. So Eisenhower would definitely become, that's the main idea as far as you want the overall reach in there. It's kind of like not saying too much in this in a public sense, that he is definitely going to be concentrating on nuclear weapons here. All right, so and don't worry about the timeline too much. This is just more for you to kind of follow. And a lot of these things are not really the main like exciting things. I will probably say some of the stuff you should put an asterisk beside, because a lot of the Apush tests. CETO is just another military alliance with Southeast Asian nations. But it's really, I guess I made a mistake here. Not so much of a military alliance, more of an alliance with nations that are really the ones that are most viable, that could probably form a good military alliance, would be like Australia and New Zealand, but not really Laos, and Vietnam and Cambodia. And at this time, with the that's going to evolve into like South Vietnam as is CETO. Really not this kind of like the Organization of American States. It's kind of a more of a kind of alliance that you're going to get some help from the United States, against any type of Soviet aggression or something that would destabilize your country. This is all part of the Cold War. So what we have here, you have Stalin, who dies in March 1953, poison. He probably, again, dies. So the next 2 years, you have this kind of like, power vacuum, and eventually Nikita Khrushchev comes to power in here. I know it says 53, but really by 55, it's really Khrushchev is in power. So he's saying, Khrushchev is trying to say, all right, I'm not as tough as Stalin. I'm not as hardline. I'm not going to be killing as many Russians as he did. like that, still ahead of a totalitarian government, still ahead of a communist government, but maybe there can be some peaceful coexistence. But as you guys know from your studies, there's a lot of incidents that happen, like, Sputnik, U2 incident, that like it's going to just kind of destroy this kind of, friendly relations between the two. But Khrushchev is not as hardline as Stalin in this sense here. So, and you get another thing about Eisenhower besides using nuclear weapons. What do we call this kind of operations within Iran, Guatemala? What they're going to be doing and operating on to try to maybe combat communist insurgency or even governments that are friendly to communist regimes. What do we call this kind of operations? What do we call this? Like say that you're not directly going to be, in a overt way lending support to the Shah of Iran to overthrow Mozambique. Yeah, you're taking over something that coup. No, but what do you call these operations if you're president, if you're not going to directly intervene and have conflict on them? What are you going to use? What kind of operation you're going to use to get bin Laden, to get, what is this? Right, not overt, covert operations, all right? By the CIA internationally to try to take out some of these people that seems to be unfriendly to the United States. Got a couple of things in 53 and 54 is the kind of when Mozambique and you have Armand Guzman saying they're going to nationalize industry in their country. What do you mean nationalize industry in the country? What is that implying? Just like when Castro takes over in 59, they're going to nationalize the oil industry in their country. They're going to nationalize, the fruit company. Go ahead. Government's going to make a profit, set regulations, maybe even take them over. All right. So you really don't have any kind of private enterprise. And once you start operating like that, and this is the time during the Cold War, I know you guys, we're not, it's different from 2019, the atmosphere. What does Eisenhower, Dulles, and some of the people in the NSC kind of thinking these countries are leaning to? Communism and align themselves with the Soviet Union. So that is Iran and Guatemala here in 53 and 54. So we topple those governments. You don't really have to remember. I'm not going to ask you what the specifics happened in the Iranian coup, as Trinity say, or the Guatemalan coup in here. But these things using covert operations to overthrow these kind of communist aligned governments. And this is what we're going to try to do to Castro. Even Eisenhower's going to be passing out the plans to um, John F. Kennedy to kind of like, with the Bay of Pigs operation. Because the Bay of Pigs operation, looking ahead to after spring break, is not really Kennedy's plan. It's Eisenhower's plan. So go ahead, Trinity. I'm sorry. Yeah, it is. It means that you will be putting on the radio about, the Guatemalan leader that this person is actually a criminal, a crook, and it's funded by the CIA. And it's like, kind of provided for. You set up the technology, these types of things in here that you'll do. You'll actually, what you'll do, some of this, CIA, along with some kind of military support too as well, but not really using the Army, Air Force in official capacities. They're delivering supplies to different people. They're offering money to like, to Arbenz, who's trying to overthrow him for his political campaign. That's what you're doing. But you're not really saying wearing a shirt that says CIA, like that, and you have people in there. You think like, oh, CIA, they look like American. You have people working for the CIA that's like Guatemalan, who's Iranian too, like that, but they're working for the American government. So I mean, but they are around, or they're sometimes again staying on the down low. That's what they're doing, and you're gonna see this really operating in the 50s, 60s, and 70s until things are revealed. Like a lot of these things are not in the public eye in the 1950s, and people are like, I can't believe the American government was involved in these things. A lot of these things will be revealed a little bit later on, but we kind of know now. And this is important. The next ID here, and you had it in your things here, and I know you're like, what's that funny, Vietnamese, like, city? Diem Bien Phu. And this is this is a loss for the French and will start more American involvement in Vietnam. This is a loss for the French and will start more American involvement into Vietnam. Now, it's going to take about 10 years before we start actually sending combat troops. Don't get me wrong about that. But when the French lose Dien Bien Phu, all right, to Ho Chi Minh, they're thinking already in the future that now it's going to be somewhat another communist country in, Asia. And this is kind of a law. So what can we do to prevent this? Well, first we go, you don't have to write all this down. We'll go to Geneva, 1954, and we're going to say, hey, there's going to be a democratic South Vietnam led by this guy, Diem. I don't trust him too much, but he says he's against the communists, like that, So, and the Vietnamese are like, well, there's nothing like this Catholic leader in this mostly Buddhist country. Well, he's going to be really inspirational like that. And Ho Chi Minh. One thing the United States is against in this country, in this divided Vietnam, is elections. Because if probably there are elections, you have Ho Chi Minh or probably some communist leader that's going to be elected. So they're against that. Don't worry. All you need to know, you recognize that, three little, like, a named city to us and how we look at it, that is kind of beginning our involvement in Vietnam. Eisenhower stays out for the most part, all right, for the most part, because he doesn't seem necessary at this time, all right, because now you got a South Vietnam. Yes. So you said the Democratic South was ruled by who? This guy Diem, Diem, and he's going to be kind of trouble. A problem with yeah, well, okay. South Vietnam is supposed to have elections and things of that nature, but it seems more kind of like change. Let's use the word description corrupt. More kind of corrupt, hooking up his family members to run the country, and then some of his family members, like his brother, having this kind of like secret police. And again, that's the problem with all this Cold War stuff. Some of the leaders that we're supporting or we kind of have take over, they're not the most they don't really practice a lot of human rights and a lot of like free elections themselves, but they're not communists. You get it? And that's the thing. That's always the key. And I see you guys now. You kind of makes it more clear. That's the thing is that we're kind of worried about like that. So say, hey, you lock up people about due process? Yeah. Do you like kidnap people and like torture your enemies? Unless again, are you communist? No. Okay. You get it? It's like one of those things. You just kind of look away at this time they're playing the Cold War game. The big thing that you definitely put like 4 or 5 asterisks around that you've had since the first grade and you can figure out. From this, you get the domino theory by Eisenhower, why we're concerned about Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia. Because what do we know in Asia that's already communist for sure? Already. China, North Korea. So now we're worried about the next domino to fall would be Vietnam. And then if you know your geography, like, a lot of you guys do know your geography in here, you think like, well, the next thing you know, Laos, Cambodia, you know, back then it was called Malay or Malaysia, like that, and everything is going to fall to communism. And that is that's a great analogy because it probably gets everybody scared in a way, right? Because you think about, well, one, you can see the visualization of dominoes falling, and you think like, well, yeah, if one country's communist, then the next country's going to turn communist too. That borders it in a way if we don't keep an eye on it. Domino theory, all right, in here. So 1955. I know it's not on here, but West Germany joins NATO, and of course the Russians are like, well, we have our own alliance system. The Warsaw Pact, and countries like again Hungary, Romania, they kind of have to join in a way that's not so much of a voluntary military alliance, but it's the Warsaw, more like I guess, the satellites of the Soviet Union, kind of like forming an alliance here. 56, you get the Hungarians uprising. You're like, Mr. Price, what's the point of that? Well, what does the Truman Doctrine kind of proselytize says about people who are resisting or fighting communism? We give money to them. Now, what's going to happen in Hungary? Where are they? Inside the Iron Curtain or outside the Iron Curtain? Inside the Iron Curtain. Are we going to help them resist communism and totalitarian government? Probably not. And I'm kind of glad about this in a way. I feel bad for the Hungarians. What is Eisenhower always thinking of in the 1950s? And so was Truman and JFK for the most part, and probably a lot of the early Cold War presidents. What would probably happen if we did send like in military supplies and stuff? Retaliation, World War III. That immediately was in their mind. Like out of mouth, this is going to cause world. Thank you, Danny. Once again, this is definitely going to cause World War III. So let's just hold back. A lot of times, people whispering in Ike's ear, "Go ahead and use a couple atomic bombs," like that. And like, I said, no, that will not make sense. It's going to escalate everything, as Danny said, and it's going to cause even more conflict. So that's more symbolic of there about the Hungarian uprising. Now, this is pretty big just because I know you don't even have to understand so much what happens around the Suez Canal, but know what the Eisenhower is going to do. He's going to extend the Truman Doctrine. The Eisenhower Doctrine says that we will give aid and supplies, including military supplies, to countries in the Middle East resisting communism and kind of fighting for freedom. That's the Eisenhower Doctrine. And then you say, Mr. Price, well, what is the Suez Crisis? Well, this is probably the only time, for trivia sakes, that the U.S. and Soviet Union are working together against France and Great Britain. What's going on? Just what we mentioned before, Nasser, he's the head of Egypt right this time. He's going to nationalize the Suez Canal. And just like Danny said before, that means take over, And that means, and then Great Britain is saying like, wait a minute, we helped build that canal here and everything. You're not going to be doing that and everything. It's going to be, trade through here. We're going to come in there. The United States says no. They send out like, some aircraft carriers, and the Soviet Union says no too. They put the UN in there to kind of patrol and kind of keep the canal somewhat regulated and open between, the Red Sea, the Mediterranean Sea, connecting the oceans. So that's how it's kind of settled. And of course, Eisenhower, everybody blames Eisenhower because they says, Nasser saying like, are you a communist, Nasser? No, I am not a communist. Even though I tried to take over the canal, even though I speak about taking over other private businesses, I am not a communist. Okay, all right. So I guess we took another kind of like you look away for that one with Eisenhower. I think he was kind of worried about the Hungarian uprising. We put troops in Lebanon, and this is where Ike loses the only person in conflict. He's the only president that's probably lost the least amount of people in a kind of conflict. One person in Lebanon, it was a sniper that shot one of our soldiers and so on. I mean, he serves 8 years. You got to think about this, and there's really one serviceman killed in combat and everything. He closes out Korea, like again, 1953. Okay, all right. Now, and you talk about Ashley. I know you guys since October Sky and things of that nature with Sputnik, but here's where we have to make the clarification. You're like, oh, Mr. Price, they sent a satellite out of space. Probably cannot use your cell phone with Sputnik, all right? Probably cannot get any kind of like, I don't know, global positioning system from Sputnik. What you probably could get is, you get it? Yeah, that's you just getting a signal that you sent this orb into space. But But the greater thing is that the U.S. is a little bit concerned about. They kind of knew that they were already working on this and everything. You know, spies everywhere. What is it about it makes it a military or kind of threat? What is it kind of can show now? Yes. You can see our bases, but it's they're not even that technology is kind of really far away. They're not even thinking about that. Danny, again, you put a bomb on it. You can send bombs across Santa Claus, across the North Pole, push a button, and wipe Detroit out. Okay, all right. So I mean, you can really like again, um, more instead of delivering with a B-52 or some kind of like a large jet airplane, some kind of delivery system, which can be easily targeted. Now you can put it on missiles here and deliver it and kind of knock out a lot of the major cities in the U.S. That's more of a danger. And don't worry, we're already working on that anyway. And we responded again, like again, with the Vanguard that blew up on television in December and everything like that. But don't worry, the Explorer came out. Again, it actually did better than the Sputnik as far as I'm concerned in 1958. The main thing that, as a result of this, and for better or for worse, can be debated, is two things. All right, in 1958. All right, and I have it on here. It's the National Defense Education Act. Now, I already heard the students already talking about it really earlier when we was in class. And what this does is that now you have a third of our engineers now is going to be working on like defense systems and something about weapon systems. But now you're getting federal money in for STEM education in foreign languages. Right? They didn't use the acronym STEM back then, okay? But more money for like that, not just humanities, like that, or some kind of, kind of concentrate that we're kind of behind in math, engineering, and science. We were not. But now we're going to get a lot of federal support, grant aids. If you want to go into those majors, concentrate on that. Grants open up for this. This is very big, all right, in here for stimulating the kind of scientific community on here. The next big thing, of course, again, is the creation of NASA on here. Now, Eisenhower did not make that proclamation about going to the moon. That would be whom? Yeah, JFK. And he just and Eisenhower even thought that was stupid anyway. Like I said, again, it's more of a kind of a publicity stunt. But NASA, you will get your research, you'll get your like space exploration, and you'll get the kind of rocket technology that really that NASA is going to be working on. That's going to really fuel the kind of research and kind of advancements that we'll make to keep us kind of competitive and maybe even outpace the Soviet Union in like aerospace technology. All right, so NASA's a big one. Real quickly, what you see here is that Khrushchev and Eisenhower say, hey, we're having a lot of tensions. Can we like meet each other? So yeah, like we'll meet each other like one time. Like again, you come over here, and like again, we'll talk. I'll send Nixon over to the Soviet Union. Like again, he can stay there. I'll send Nixon over there, and then him and Khrushchev are in this model U.S. home, like in the kitchen, and then him and Khrushchev begin to debate. You guys saw the video about who's better, the U.S. or the Soviet. Khrushchev's biggest thing is that they're a young country right now. I know it's Russia, but as far as the Soviet Union, they're young. They're going to be competitive in the economic way with the United States in the long run. That's all that was in the kitchen. It's not really I don't know if that's the biggest thing to like kind of remember here like that. Fidel Castro comes to power in '59. Well, is he a communist? Is he not? I don't. Eisenhower fails to meet with Castro. Castro felt like he was a big leader. Eisenhower did not want to meet him, not because he thought he was communist. He thought he did not deserve to be kind of met in a way because he's just taken over from Batista. What is this guy all about? So he turns to the Soviet Union. And the big thing about that, where is Cuba? Right, right under. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Very good, very good. very good. So, and you guys have probably even, been down there like that, and you're just very close to, now you have a communist country somewhat right next door like that. And so, and finally, though, what really heats up everything is that, they were supposed to meet in Paris. We get a U-2 spy plane shot down Gary Powers. You guys saw that foreshadowing in the film. There were I'm Gary Powers in there, and it's a show trial and everything. And Khrushchev said, "Hey, we should meet in Paris, and you should apologize for like the spying on us." Like I was like, I'm not gonna do that like that. It says I'm gonna finally admit we weren't spying, but it's not like you guys have been like, "Ooh, I wonder what the United States is doing." So that's, but it does look like a kind of a PR kind of public relations coup for the Soviet Union to say have evidence that they're just look at this and show everybody in the world and to other nations too that like, hey, the United States is not just innocent, and they want to be like, they're spying us from high, above in the skies. And they get shot down. Gary Powell is captured and put on a show trial. He's eventually returned there. So I think a lot of times too, Gary Powers is kind of unfairly targeted too. Like, oh, you should have taken those cyanide pills. You should have killed yourself and everything like that. I mean, there's a lot of circumstances for why he couldn't just, again, just do that. So, but anyway, that kind of closes that up. And I just want to say that, like, that I'll go to the more domestic, so I'll just kind of hit this real quick. But remember, like I said, the asterisk stuff and everything. Again, what is his doctrine? What is massive retaliation? What about the All Stars, Sputnik, Dim Bim Food, just because of Vietnam in a way. All right, so those are the things. Cool, guys are great.